The kingdom of Centene has been ruled by the Pauline family for many centuries now. One after another, the sons were crowned, even if the daughters were worthy of being crowned. Somehow, the son would prove himself as more worthy through all legal or illegal means and crown himself. After 301 years of the Pauline rule, the storm was around the corner to wipe out the Centene kingdom. Angela, the daughter of His Majesty the King Kashan, was ambitious, talented, a brave soldier, the protector of the family, and was looking to becoming the first ever queen of the Centene kingdom. On the other side, she had a brother, Matt, who was also worthy of being crowned. He was equally talented, a knight to protect the family at night and a soldier to protect them during the day. However, still it was being rumored around the kingdom that Matt was nowhere near the strengths of Angela. The people of the kingdom were looking for a change. They wanted a woman ruling them. It had been so many years that men were ruling them. This time, they wanted a change. After a few months, His Majesty, the king, fell ill and he was on his deathbed. His Majesty the king called his children and seated them beside him. He said, "You both should know that I may be leaving the world very soon." Tears started falling from Angela's eyes as she held her father's hand while Matt stood there in silence. His Majesty continued, "I know you both are worthy of ruling the kingdom of Centene, but..." Angela stopped her father in the middle and said, "Yes, father, I am ready to become the Queen of Centene. You don't have to worry about the kingdom. I will take care of our people." The king frowned and disapproved by moving his head from left to right. Matt replied, "But Angela, you know this cannot happen. I will be the rightful king of Centene after father." The king said, "Yes, Angela, a girl cannot rule the kingdom. This has never happened before." Angela and Matt began an argument over who would rule the kingdom. Meanwhile, the king started losing his breath and with a low, shaky voice chanted, "Matt!" Matt and Angela faced their father and stopped their argument. King Kashan took off his crown and kept it in his hand. Angela put forward her hand to receive the crown, and so did Matt. However, to Angela's dismay, the king handed over the crown to Matt and said, "You are now the king of Centene. The kingdom is yours." Angela left the room immediately, leaving her father to take his last breaths. She went to her room, cried like a baby, and then came outside her room. The news of the king's death was spreading across the castle. Everyone and everything was in chaos, so Angela had the perfect time to leave the kingdom. She didn't think of anything else other than leaving the kingdom. In her heart, she knew she would be back to rule the kingdom, but at this moment, she didn't know how. Angela covered herself with a big cloth and ran out of the castle without being spotted by any of the guards. She ran through the woody forest until she could rest and find water. She sat across the tree and wondered what she had done. She thought that she could have stayed and ruled alongside her brother, or she shouldn't have ever dreamt to become the queen, even when she knew this was never going to happen. However, her heart still believed that she will be the queen of Centene one day. Angela had nowhere to go, so she rested her back against a tree to take a nap. After an hour or two, an old man nudged Angela and woke her up. The old man knew Angela was the princess of Centene, so he asked her to escort her back to the kingdom if she had lost her way. However, Angela refused to go back. The old man told her that Matt has been crowned officially in the castle and he is the new king of the people. Upon hearing this from the old man, Angela broke into tears. The old man was shocked to see Angela like this because the people of Centene had known their princess to be brave and courageous. Angela told the old man how she was worthy of being crowned. The old man agreed that Angela really was worthy. The old man said that he knew how Angela could overthrow the kingdom of her brother and become the queen, but it was a dangerous idea. Angela was ready to take the risk, so the old man took her to his house. The old man shared that he has something that would make her the queen. Angela laughed and questioned, "If you really have this thing, why aren't you the king?" The old man replied, "The crown is dangerous, and it has been kept hidden by my family for generations, and we have been waiting to use it at the right time. The right time has come." The old man opened a wooden cupboard and took out a safe box. He then grabbed a small key from underneath a decoration piece and opened the box. The old man took out a golden crown. It had expensive jewels and looked ancient. He said, "Wear it." He instructed Angela to wear the crown, and once she wears it, she will have all the power to rule if she is unworthy, but won't have any powers if she is worthy of being the queen. Angela laughed at the old man. She thought he was a madman. Angela waved goodbye to the old man, as she didn't want to spend even a second with the old man. The old man quickly grabbed Angela's arm and placed the golden crown on her head. As soon as the old man placed the crown on her head, he submitted to Angela and said, "My queen, how may I serve you?" Angela laughed again at the old man. She didn't remove the crown, but left the house. The old man followed her like a guard. Angela tried to get rid of the old man, but he was keen on giving protection to Angela. Angela reached a town and saw people gathering around her and treating her like a queen. Angela was frustrated and told everyone that her brother has been crowned king and she is not a queen. She is just wearing a fake crown. However, people submitted to her. The peasants started listening to her. Common people became her guards and treated her like a queen. Wherever Angela went, people considered her a queen. Angela finally believed that this had been going on due to the crown she is wearing. She decided it was the perfect opportunity to use the crown and take down the kingdom of Centene. She started gathering an army in a small village. She gained influence, and people submitted to her and joined her army wherever she went. The people admired her. The news started spreading around about the queen, and more people joined her. Within a week, Angela was ready to return to the castle with an army. Along with her army, she marched towards the castle of Centene and asked her brother to surrender. Matt didn't surrender, but one by one, he lost his soldiers. He didn't know what was happening. One after another, his army left him and joined Angela's army. Even before the war had begun, it felt like everyone was under the influence of the crown, but Matt was immune to it. As Matt had lost all support from the kingdom of Centene, he took off his crown of the kingdom of Centene and handed it over to Angela. In happiness and proudness, Angela took off the golden jewel crown and wore the kingdom's crown on her head. She finally became the queen of Centene. However, as soon as she took off the crown, she lost influence over the people who were on her side. The people were confused. They didn't know what had just happened. Matt quickly ordered the knights to capture Angela. Both of the crowns were taken from her. Matt understood what had happened, so he kept the golden crown for himself too. Angela was beheaded in front of the castle for rising against the kingdom, and Matt was crowned as the new king. All hail His Majesty the King, ruler of the King Centene. Long live the king. So how did Angela do this? How did she become the queen of people? We have the answers. His Majesty's SCP-MDLXI, also known as SCP-1561, is a glorious golden crown wrought by the finest smith and crafted with the most expensive jewels in the land. The object's sorcery is activated when His Majesty's crown is spoken, worn, or inscribed about. When worn on an unworthy head of a common male peasant, commoners who are within viewing distance see the unworthy wearer as the highest authority that they have ever met. These subjects are born anew when the king is crowned, and they willingly take upon themselves new roles befitting of their previous stature. Guards become knights. Scientists become royal scholars, and other commoners become peasants. Peasants under his rule also feel the rightly obligation to fashion a robe out of the finest material at hand, sometimes using their own grimy garments for the new righteous king to wear. The newly crowned king also develops a magnificent sense of ruling, which empowers him to build the royal army of knights and establish his kingdom. The unworthy wearer also grows a glorious beard and mustache to better befit his position. These effects decline away when the royal crown is willingly removed or when the unworthy subject dies. Men who have not directly witnessed the greatness of the royal crown can resist its resoluteness and are to be branded heretics, banished from the land, or otherwise executed at His Majesty's pleasure. Inscriptions and any speech that regard His Majesty's SCP-MDLXI also alter to befit the King's ascended status. Any knowledge of His Majesty's SCP-MDLXI causes a compulsion to refer to the royal crown justly as His Majesty's SCP-MDLXI. It is also important to note that indirect reference to His Majesty's SCP-MDLXI doesn't cause any effects. The Foundation is tracking the use of SCP-1561. However, we lost track of it for about 3 months. The reports told that the crown had been with an unworthy ruler for 3 months until King Matt was crowned again. Upon questioning His Majesty the King Matt, he wrote a letter to the Council which reads, "Greetings, Council. I do hope this letter reaches you in good health, and that you bear no ill will towards my kingdom or its people. I understand that you might harbor resentment towards me, but I find that of little consequence. I beseech you to try not to think me a tyrant, but as an ally in the fight against the greater enemy, our shared enemy. What I am proposing in a treaty between our factions, my Kingdom of Sight Redacted will continue in its original capacity, and I will agree to receive orders from the Council, and in exchange, you cease all attempts to invade my kingdom or harm its people. The details can be drawn at a later date, but these terms will be the foundation of our mutual partnership. As a symbol of my goodwill, I have fastened to this creature along with a document written by one of my scribes detailing the attributes of my most royal crown. Mind you, not all reports we produce will be written in this manner. It is just an effect my regalia has on my subjects. I shall send a draft of our treaty next winter on the first full moon. Please do not try to fool me. I still have many objects of sorcery, and there aren't many a man who would gladly die for me, within and without the kingdom. The most glorious King Matt, ruler of the kingdom of Centene."